Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today's video, we're going to be looking at an updated portfolio, breaking down all of the changes that I've made, what's working, the reason why some of it was not working, and what I really plan to do going forward, whether you're looking for inspiration for your own investment or you're brand new to investing, just curious about the strategy that I'm using in my personal portfolio, you are absolutely in the right place. So grab your cup of coffee, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and let's go ahead and get into this portfolio. All right, guys, so here we are breaking down my debt-free journey. Now, as you can see right back here in the front, that's exactly what we're doing. So what we've chosen to do is actually systematically invest a lot more money versus paying off the mortgage. Now, there's going to be a point in time for my 50th birthday that I do plan on paying the mortgage. And even looking at the investment portfolio we have more than enough in here to actually pay off the mortgage as it sits today. But the mortgage is at 2.5%. Now, I cannot justify almost under any means going ahead and investing and paying off that mortgage at 2.5% versus the returns that we're going to see within this portfolio. Now, with this portfolio, it is made up of 3 ETFs. We are focusing on the QQQ, the VOO, and the SCHD. Now, the big change to this is, of course, we have systematically been reducing the holding within the SCHD. It is underperforming, and that's exactly what I want to show you here. So right now, as we can see, and I want to go out to all, the portfolio is at about 180K. You can see we have made $43,000 in this portfolio at a 89% return. This is over less than 4 years. So we are almost sitting at a 90% return in this portfolio. And if you think about the last 4 years, 2022 was a very, very big down year. Even when we start looking back here, it was a pretty big down year. And even beginning right here was September. In the very beginning, we were at 0. September 24, 2021, we were at 0 in this portfolio. So there has been a lot of contributions. That means, again, mathematically, just kind of breaking it down, around 137,000. And I think, again, right around the math, maybe 136. Plus the 43 that we've earned out of here, again, giving us that 89%. Because remember, we dollar cost average. Now with M1 Finance that we're in right now, it is very important. I have a link down below if you want to join, because there are 2 different ways with M1 Finance to actually balance portfolios. The first one is being the rebalance option. So you can see right here in the middle, we do have the rebalance option. Now everything within the portfolio is set on a pie, as you can see right here. And those pies are going to have different weights, which I want to look at in just a minute. But let's break this down a little bit further because I want to go a week out. So looking at a week, we're up about $4,000 or about 2%. Now this is just really amplified with numbers. If you're starting with $1,000, $10,000 portfolio, of course, it's not going to be up $4,000. But when you get to this level, it is really to a point where this portfolio, putting about 50,000 or roughly a little bit over half my salary into this every single year. How do I do that? Debt-free, guys. The only thing I have left is a mortgage. That's why last video, we talked about being almost completely debt-free. Again, no justification in that 2.5%, because even looking over the last week, we have made 2.46% or the 2.5% investing versus going in the mortgage. Now, looking down here, you can see exactly where this came up. So in the last week, we can see QQQM 1.8, VOO doing pretty well, SCHD at a 3.60. So overall, the SCHD doing pretty well. And then, of course, I do hold 10% now, while roughly 5% in Bitcoin. The Bitcoin has been doing incredibly well. So what I did systematically, and some of kind of the backdate for the portfolio, when we started adding Bitcoin to the portfolio, I sold my actual Bitcoin on Coinbase. We moved the funds over here. Holding it here just really simplifies the entire process. Don't have to worry about the cryptocurrency because it's in the investment portfolio itself. You can see 2.5% gain. Then we go out for the last month. This is again where it gets kind of interesting. You can see about 8,500 in the past 30 days, but note we are at 5%. Again, mortgage is at 2.5%. We're at a 5% gain. So double the gain that we've seen in here versus paying down and really focusing on that mortgage. And even looking, the numbers kind of come out a little bit different. QQQM at that 5.6, which is the leader in here, VOO 5.2, the SCHD 4%, and then the Bitcoin at 2.9. So again, thinking we're spanning out and kind of going out little by little, because then we get into the last 3 months. Now we are up 15.97 or almost 16% in the last 3 months. That's a pretty good runway. ever since, President Trump came in office. Seen the market really drop considerably through dollar cost averaging. And then, of course, we seen the big gain, making almost 24K, as you see right there, for what we've get built out. So look at this. And this is where it gets interesting. QQQM 23.75. So thinking about the last 90 days, that has grown 24%, which is just astronomical. Even looking at the VOO at that 17%. And as you can see from the SCHD, the percentage that it's growing continues to go down further and further and further. And look at Bitcoin, guys, 33% up in this ETF, which is kind of crazy. Then we go year to date. Now we are 7 months in at this point. It goes to 7.7. Now you can see kind of the volatility right around the April-May timeframe. A lot of volatility in the market. This, of course, included the president taking office, but also included all of the volatility that we've seen with Trump and with tariffs that were coming out. Were they on? Were they off? Were they being canceled? What was happening through this time? Remember, dollar cost averaging is exactly what we teach, exactly what we preach, and exactly the contributions that I was making. When the market was going down in April, we were buying like clockwork. Even looking at the past 4 years with this portfolio, buying like clockwork. Looking at the gains here, again, we can see that the NASDAQ doing incredibly well, outperforming the VOO, which we traditionally see, especially because it's very heavy in those tech stocks. SCHD percentage continues to go down. And then you can see Bitcoin at 15.84, so doing incredibly well. Then we look at the last 12 months. So this again, looking at a bigger picture, almost 14.5% right here. And then we start looking at 16% with the NASDAQ, 16% with the VOO. SCHD goes to that 10%. And then, of course, Bitcoin at 16. So overall, in the last 12 months, seeing roughly a 15% return. Again, the return, unfortunately, being brought down by the SCHD like we've traditionally seen. And then I want to go, and this is not really indicative. When I go to all, this is starting back, and a portfolio started right here, September of 2021. Now, this is a little bit different because money weighted, again, we're around 90%, but you'll notice that 92% is the VOO. Now, the reason for this is when we started this portfolio for roughly probably 2.5 of the 4 years, we were invested in the VOO and only invested in the VOO in its entirety. Now, two things that I really want to note on here that you have to know is number one, when it comes to the portfolio, you can see there is an actual and there is a target right up here. So this is very important to note because this is where I changed. So if you remember the portfolio, we had roughly 35% in the QQQM. Then we had 30, I think 30 and 30 within the VOO and the SCHD. Then that 5% was in Bitcoin. Now, overall, what we've done with the portfolio is you can see the 30 or 35 went up 10%. So the QQQM is going to get 45% of the portfolio. The S&P 500 or the VOO is getting 30%, and the SCHD is down to 15%. So knowing that the SCHD is based really on dividends, it is really the growth side of it. Because I feel like right now we're so heavily tech focused, and there is such a really ability to grow these ETFs as they sit right now, putting a much larger chunk into something that is a little more risk like the QQQ. And then, of course, having that stable or that foundation of the VOO really does make a big difference. In scaling back, because you can see right now, actual is 28. This, I believe, was at 30%. I scaled it back to 15. So I am scaling my holdings of the SCHD in half just based on the performance that we've seen for an extended amount of time. Now, another thing to note is when we look at the QQQ and look at the SCHD, both of those I held at the same time. So where the SCHD is yielding a 16% growth, the QQQ is at a 43% growth, of course. Tech stocks, a lot more riskier, a lot more really growth that we can get out of there. But holding the SCHD for the next 5, 10, 15 years as a smaller part of the portfolio, I feel really does kind of make sense. And again, the percentages here make a big difference because every single time that I do a purchase, right here, looking at, I have almost 30% of the VOO. So that's on target. Even the 10% here is M1 Finance specifically. And this doesn't happen with Robinhood or a couple other portfolios that I know. when I do an investment, anything that is underweight, right here again, that QQQ at 45% is the target, 37% is what the actual is. When I do a contribution, even if I do contributions for the next couple months, which we do them every week, nothing will ever go to the SCHD because it is overweight. So again, when we think of rebalancing in the portfolio, this is going to automatically rebalance over time to the 45, the 30, the 15, and the 10. That is going to happen over time. It's not going to be instant. I'm not going to go through, sell out some of my assets to buy some of my other assets. So essentially sell my 15% of the SCHD to go ahead and rebalance it to everything else. It is going to happen gradually through time with where we're at in the market and with the contributions we're making in here. Like I said, because this is overweight, this will never increase. It will only decrease, meaning that we're going to be putting a lot more into the QQQ, a little bit more again to get that 0.8%. And then, of course, a little bit more into Bitcoin to continue the growth of those ETFs itself. But it will automatically over time rebalance. So even if I took a large lump sum, let's say I put $10,000 in here, none of it would go to the SCHD. It would only focus on and build into the QQQM. And I believe everything at this point would go right in there just because it is a higher weighted or roughly 13% underweighted. It fills up the weight and it does go by kind of the weighted average of this itself to get to the targets that you're at depending on where you are. So again, guys, it's pretty cool to see. And I love investing with M1 Finance. Again, we have a link down below so you can definitely check it out. But overall, the portfolio, definitely a big change in the pullback with the SCHD that we're seeing. I really don't like that they have such a heavy focus in the energy sector with the reconstitution that they had back in March. I feel like it might not be headed in the best direction. And of course, when you think about a 4% return for dividends, and overall, the growth has not been really big. It's been kind of blue chip. It's been kind of staple, which we do see traditionally with the SCHD. But the 4% yield, we're even seeing that right now in CDs, high yield savings. We're even seeing a higher percentage when it comes to bonds itself or treasury bonds that you can actually get than that 4%. All right, so that wraps up the portfolio update for today. I hope it gave you some insight, maybe even giving some new spark ideas of what you want to be investing in. Now, if you found the video helpful, definitely give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of the updates. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on the portfolio itself. So drop a comment down below. Let me know what you're investing in right now. And if you have any questions, definitely drop them in there. And thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.